Tennis star Naomi Osaka has pulled out of the French Open following her announcement just last week that she would not take part in press conferences. Now, doing press conferences is unfortunately a requirement, part of the job of being an athlete, and as a result, she was fined and threatened with harsher sanctions for skipping her mandatory media obligations. This is her statement in regard to pulling out of the French Open. She says, "I think now is the best thing for the tournament. The other players and my well-being is that I withdraw so that everyone can get back to focusing on the tennis going on in Paris. I never wanted to be a distraction, and I accept that my timing was not ideal and the message could have been clearer." So the president of the French Tennis Federation responded to her decision in pulling out of the French Open and said this: "The outcome of Naomi withdrawing from the Roland Garros is unfortunate. We wish her the best and the quickest possible recovery, and we look forward to having Naomi in our tournament next year. As all the Grand Slams, the WTA, the ATP, and the ITF, we remain very committed to all athletes' well-being and to continually improving all aspects of players' experience in our tournaments, including with the media, like we have always tried to do." So what he's referring to there is how Naomi Osaka had mentioned that she's struggling with some mental health issues, and doing these press conferences does not help. Since 2018, she's been struggling with depression and anxiety. And so what she said last week in not wanting to do these press conferences was this: "I am not a natural public speaker and get huge waves of anxiety before I speak to the world's media. I get really nervous and find it stressful to always try to engage and give the media the best answers I can. Me not doing press is nothing personal to the tournament, and a couple journalists have interviewed me since I was so young, so I have a friendly relationship with most of them. However, if the organizations think they can just keep saying do press or you're gonna be fined and continue to ignore the mental health of athletes that are the centerpiece of their cooperation, then I just gotta laugh." So she was unfortunately fined $15,000 for skipping a press conference, Ryan. And I'm incredibly empathetic to Osaka and any other athlete who doesn't want to do these press conferences. As someone who's in the past struggled with anxiety and depression myself, I can totally understand not wanting to do them. But as a member of the press, maybe you have a different point of view. I'm not sure. What do you think, Ryan?
No, I agree with you in this, for a couple of reasons. I mean, one is that if you actually think about it, like, who actually wants those on-court press events anyway? Like, people aren't there for that. People are there to watch people play tennis. Now, if she wants to do, if she wants to do an interview with the reporter, one-on-one, and the reporter writes something interesting, that's the kind of thing the public would consume. But those on-court and on-field interviews that happen right after the game and the matches are completely useless. It's just a contest among the different players of who can string together the most cliches and say the least amount of things to fill a couple of minutes, and then go on about their business. And most fans don't want to be watching that to begin with, but you certainly don't want to be watching it if you think that the person is suffering and doing it under duress. That's completely unenjoyable to a fan. So even if the goal here is to make the best kind of experience for the fans who are there, who cares about these on-court interviews? I mean, what were you thinking? When you hit that ace? Well, it felt really good to hit that ace.
Right.
What about that return at that crucial point? Well, that was a really good return, and the other player gave their best, and she didn't leave anything on the court, and I didn't either, and we're all here to do our best, and look forward to meeting again in the next match. Like, who learned anything from any of that? It's just, so why force somebody to go through it if they don't want to?
Some other tennis players were not as kind or charitable to Osaka. Maria Navratilova had this to say: kudos to Naomi Osaka for caring so much about the other players. That was meant to be sarcastic. While she tried to make a situation better for herself and others, she inadvertently made it worse. Hope this solution, pulling out, as brutal as it is, will allow her to start healing and take care of herself. And self is in all caps, essentially saying that this was a little bit of a selfish decision, I guess. I mean, that's the read that I got. I completely disagree. I mean, I don't think that she did this in any way to put other players at any kind of disadvantage. And this is an ongoing problem, not just with tennis athletes, but athletes across the board. In fact, in a 2015 press conference, NFL player Marshawn Lynch answered all questions with the same response. And this is what the response was. Take a look.
I'm just here so I won't get fined. I'm just here so I won't get fined.
So you won't get fined?
Just here so I won't get fined.
Does it bother you with all the attention and they just want you to talk when you really don't?
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
I pretty much know why you won't talk. Is it because you don't trust anyone, or they could misconstrue your words?
Just so I won't get fined, boss.
Are you still about that action, boss?
Just here so I won't get fined.
I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you later, my brother.
I mean, I loved that tactic. I thought that was hilarious. But there was also the Allen Iverson press conference that went viral, and even I make references to time, the practice rant that you're about to see in this next clip.
It's easy to sum it up when you just talk about practice. We sitting here, I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice.
Well, Coach,
I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game. Not the game that I go out there and die for and play every game like it's my last. Not the game. We talking about practice, man. I mean, how silly is that, man? We're talking about practice. I know I'm supposed to be there. I know I'm supposed to lead by example. I know that. And I'm not shoving it aside, like it don't mean anything. I know it's important. I do. I honestly do. But we talking about practice, man. What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man. We're talking about practice. We're talking about practice. We ain't talking about the game. We're talking about practice, man. When you come in the arena and you see me play, don't you?
Absolutely.
You see me give everything I got, right?
Absolutely.
But we talking about practice right now.
But it's an issue that your coach
We talking about
you to raise.
Man, I hear you. It's funny to me too. I mean, it's strange to me too. But we talking about practice, man. We're not even talking about the game, the actual game, when it matters. We talking about practice.
So Ryan, that video of course went viral at the time. People still make references of it today. But what's also really fascinating was the statements that Allen Iverson said during that press conference that no one seemed to care about, that never got much attention. He was struggling over the death of his best friend, Rashad Langford, at the time. And he said this during the press conference. This is the final graphic. In truth, minutes after he spoke about practice, Iverson becomes more serious and vulnerable. And he says this: I'm upset for one reason, because I'm in here, I lost my best friend, I lost him this year. Everything is just going downhill for me. As far as just that, as far as my life. And then I'm dealing with this. My best friend is dead, and we lost. And this is what I have to go through for the rest of the summer until the season is all over again. No one really drew much attention to that. And being forced to do a press conference as you're dealing with mental health issues, as you're dealing with the loss of your best friend. I mean, it's ridiculous, and it should not be a required part of the job. So, I mean, it's yeah.
Right, and so nobody really wanted to talk about the latter part, the more serious part there. But what I can say is, like, Allen Iverson was right. It was absurd to talk about practice because yes. In the history of the NBA, there might not be another player who gave his all in every minute of every game, often playing 48 minutes, than Allen Iverson. He really did lay it all on the court. And so I think he was actually making a perfectly fair point that, look, if you find me slacking off for 5 seconds in any game, any season, then come criticize me about that, because what I get paid to do is play in games and win games. But we're talking about practice. Yeah. So I'm actually totally with him on that. There are some Sixers players like Charles Barkley, you could find him loafing on the court, but not Allen Iverson. So to me, he's totally entitled to mock the idea that they're sitting around analyzing his effort in a practice.
I want to read Jonathan's comments in our super chat section, and send in your super chats. We'll read them during the show and our breaks when we do our social breaks. Jonathan writes that Osaka did the smart thing. She needs to work on her issues. Sports psychiatry is a huge thing now, especially in the tennis world. And athletes take quite a bit of abuse. I mean, there was a basketball game recently. Please don't ask me for details because I'm not at all involved in reporting sports or even watching sports. Maybe you know what I'm talking about, Ryan, but there was a basketball player who was taken off the court because of an injury. I think he hurt his ankle. And as he's being walked off, there was an audience member who decided to throw popcorn at him as he was walking to the locker room. And then he got really angry and wanted to go after this guy who threw the popcorn at him. But it's just like constant abuse. You're dealing with your own health issues, your own mental health issues, and then you're being forced to do press conferences that you might not be mentally prepared to do. So I think that this is an important topic to delve into. I think the sports world should be a little more considerate about the athletes and what they're expecting from them. So I give Osaka quite a bit of credit for being willing to do what she's doing. Pulling out of the French Open is not a small thing, and she's willing to do that in order to focus on her mental health and, more importantly, draw attention to what athletes are going through overall. So maybe something can change moving forward.
And I'm also thinking about this idea that somebody is mandated to do interviews. How much easier would it make my job covering Congress if you get elected and now you're required to come out and talk to the press? You're gonna get fined if you don't. That just seems absurd. It's the job of reporters to go out and find sources and get the sources to talk. That almost feels too easy to just force them to come out and answer your questions. It feels like cheating, performance enhancement.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.